Continuing our coverage of all things NFL from the Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, joining us now, the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. He is Zac Taylor. Zac, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
Thanks
Zac,
for doing it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good he got here. I mean, the room cleared out. He finally got here. I mean, I think he's
Smart man.
technically late every year for this, so he doesn't have to deal with the whole media rush. I was just giving him a hard time before we came on.
I'll take all the credit I can get.
Okay. Sounds good. It's good coaching.
How's the offseason going so far?
So far, so good. A little longer than we had hoped for, but we're trying to make the most of it. We've had some new hires we've brought in the building, and so everyone's getting settled.
When you watch playoff football, do you get invested, root anything, or do you just kind of sit back?
It's hard to watch,
Yeah.
because the last 2 years we'd been in those games.
Right.
And I'm walking through the airport on the way to somewhere, and they're announcing the score of the Bills-Chiefs game. The security guy is, and I'm thinking, that's I want our score to be announced.
Yeah, yeah.
And
right.
so it's hard to watch, but again, we love watching the games. We watched all of them.
After having a year that finished with a Super Bowl appearance and then a year that ended with an AFC Championship appearance, this year no postseason, how different is that just from the standpoint of what you have time to do and refocus and prepare for the season to come?
I mean, there's several more weeks in January than we've had in the years past. We did have movement on our coaching staff, so there was a lot of interviews that had to take place. So we were in a position to be able to do that and make the right hires. But it does put things in perspective. It's hard to get back there. It's hard to get to the playoffs. It's hard to get to the top. And we got a lot of work to do to be able to get ourselves back in that position.
Got a lot of work to do, but you should feel a little proud. At least I said here. I mean, you lost Joe Dan Burrow, and you guys kind of stayed in the right race there. I mean, there's got to be a little bit of silver lining there with how your football team played and fought towards the end of the year.
I think that's the great point is we found out a lot about the team.
Right.
Things I thought I already knew, but man, these guys will compete. But also disappointed that we didn't get to keep playing into January, and so those are things that we expect to do. But so there's things to be proud of, but also things to be disappointed about as well.
Did it feel? It felt like us. I mean, we talk about you guys in football every day. It felt like it was like, oh, here's the Bengals sleepwalking in September again a little bit. But did it feel like to you guys in the locker room that you were kind of starting to get it right as the Burrow injury happened?
Yeah, it did. We went on the road to San Francisco and hosted Buffalo in a big Sunday night game.
Right.
And then turned around and played Baltimore and had the injury happen. So we felt like we were playing good football. Took a little lull there, but then got back, won 3 in December, put ourselves back in contention, and then just couldn't close it out.
Yeah.
You played the Chiefs on New Year's Eve after they had a not too good game against the Raiders. When you studied that and knew you were getting them in the aftermath of that, I mean, were you thinking we're getting a team that isn't the Chiefs that we're used to?
No, you couldn't allow yourself to think like that or see that. You still see the same faces on the other side. Chris Jones, Kelsey, Mahomes, all the same great coaches they've had. So there's a lot of guys we respect there. It's always a battle. The game came down like it always does the last couple minutes of the game, and we weren't able to pull it out.
You feel better right now? With T. Higgins tied up, that's like stress relief. Like USA, you're good for right now?
I wasn't too stressed about not having T next year. So, internally when you get to have the conversations, there wasn't a whole lot for me to stress about. But he's a huge part of what we do. He works his tail off to put himself in the position to be where he's at. And so, again, he's needs to be a part of what we're doing.
What about your QB, Burrow, right? I mean, where's he at right now? Like, you think he's going to have a full off season and
he's
everything
progressing.
there?
One thing I've learned in 6 years of doing this job is when it comes to the injuries, don't throw deadlines on it.
Yeah.
But he's progressing as well as everyone could hope.
Right.
We have high expectations. The hope is that he'll be involved in the offseason program, be able to do as much as possible, and then we'll be ready to go for the season.
Does it feel like it's been 6 years? You said 6 years, and I'm like, holy crap, it's been 6 years.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's like, man, it's flown by. Just seeing pictures of my kids, I think at my opening press conference, to where they're at now, and 6 years of childhood, that puts things in perspective for me of where we were in life and where we are now, and things that we've achieved and things we have yet to achieve. So there's still a lot there to go after.
I want to go back to the receiver position because you've got a quarterback who's got market value contract. You've got one receiver in Jamar Chase who's going to expect after Justin Jefferson gets his contract, whenever that may happen, a market value contract. You've got T. Higgins now with the franchise tag. How do you philosophically Because there was a time when, I remember it well, like the Cardinals. Well, we can't pay both Anquan Bolton and Larry Fitzgerald. We got to pick one or the other. How do you allocate cap dollars for those 3 spots on the roster and keep everybody else happy and have a good enough team around them?
So maybe we should be quiet and listen to Duke's press conference. Maybe he's answering that right now. So that's the time of year where Duke gets to take on those questions. And obviously what I love about being with the Bengals is everybody's involved and everyone gets to hear it and everyone gets to have opinions. But at the end of the day, those are the decisions that they've been working on diligently. They've seen what type of talent's in the building. They brought it there, how to figure it all out, and let us coach these guys as best we can. And so, again, it's been a very collaborative process that I appreciate being a part of.
I'm interested in, a little bit more of a philosophical question, right, about the league in general, right? Is there a trend that's coming right now in the NFL, or that is here already and maybe I don't even know about, that you find like is kind of fascinating about the league right now, maybe compared to 6, 7, 8 years ago?
I think 6, 7 years ago, the way some of these motions have evolved offensively,
Right.
and now how the defense is reacting to it,
Yeah.
and they'll probably start to phase out. And then these motions were probably here 20 years ago. I just didn't know about it. I didn't watch pro football back then.
Right.
And now they're coming back in. So I just think there's things like that have evolved that people have stolen, studied. Defense have done the same thing. They'll phase out, then they'll pop back in, a decade later. And
Do you find yourself like, how much do you get influenced by that, Because people like me sometimes are sitting there going, I wish the Bengals motion more, right? After I watch you play a certain team or whatever, right? So, how do you kind of balance, doing some of that stuff, but also keeping what you want to do?
You want to make sure it's worthwhile.
Yeah,
don't
Gotcha.
just motion just a motion because people tell you got a motion.
Yeah,
And so
right.
you want to gain information from it. You want to gain leverage. You want to give the quarterback information. You want to give the receivers releases. You want to be able to find some tools to see what the defense is doing to make our audibles and things like that. So we want to know, before we put one in, we want to know what is this actually giving us.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a way to cover up a formation. But we put a lot of time and effort to making sure we're doing it the right way.
Postseason overtime. Obviously, the Bills-Chiefs game from a couple of years ago sparked the change, but you played in the last postseason overtime game under the old rules against the Chiefs.
Wow.
And the Chiefs got the ball first. And the Chiefs weren't able to score a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes throws an interception, you win the game. And I say all that I'm curious, from your perspective, postseason overtime, you win the coin toss. Do you already have a decision as to what you're going to do if you win the coin toss?
So we have a general decision, yes. But as soon as that happened, I did go through my notes from the previous year. We played Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City, and had these conversations before every game Saturday morning. And we'd written in great detail the whys and the whys nots of doing each. So
it changes for every opponent,
it
right?
changes. It can constantly change. And so, again, I can't speak to the decisions that were made in the Super Bowl because there's a lot of thought that goes into that. There's a lot of support you could make behind each one. And it's not as just clean cut as some people said to me, well, college, this is what they do in college. Well, in college, it doesn't ever turn into sudden death.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different element that you got to consider. And so it really the weather, the team, there's a lot of things I think that play into that equation.
And you wouldn't make a final decision based upon what you're saying until it's time.
You have to sit. I couldn't tell you right now, next postseason, this is our decision.
Right.
I could maybe tell you where I'd lean right now, but that would be an in-depth decision with our coordinators and our analytics people.
Are you? I've asked a few AFC coaches this, especially today, right? Because there's, the AFC West coaches dealing with the Chiefs, Mahomes, all that. Are you a little bit more? Did the Bengals go, hey, let's worry about the AFC North, or is it a little bit more in totality of the AFC altogether to kind of get to the promised land?
You've got to focus on your division, certainly.
Yeah.
And we were 1-5 last year in our division, which is why our record was 9-8. We did make the playoffs. So what we've always subscribed to is when you can come out alive in your division, you're battle tested, ready for the playoffs. And so our focus is on that, is beating those 3 teams, put yourself in the best position to when you do make the playoffs, you feel like it's all in front of us right now. Obviously, there's great teams elsewhere. Kansas City's won it the last 2 years, so we still pay attention to them. Feels like we played them 20 times in the last 3 years.
Right.
But there's a singular focus within the division, and then there's that wholesale focus.
Yeah. So it starts
of some key
division,
teams
and then
to
it
league.
goes from there.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I want to ask another question about a bigger picture issue. They're going to do something with the kickoff. Troy Vincent has made it clear that the kickoff, as it's currently constituted, can't continue. It's a dead play. Just put the ball in the 25. What would you do differently than what they're currently doing now?
Yeah, That's a hard one for me to answer. That's been kicked around now for over a year, where we've talked in depth. I've talked with Darren Simmons, our special teams coach. I don't have that solution. It's one where I want to hear everybody's opinions and then jump in, and we'll vote certainly whichever way we feel like we need to vote. But as a quarterback, offense coordinator background, not a head coach, I'll defer to these special teams coaches that have talked it around a lot, and we'll see where they end up with it.
Will your life change much now? You got a coaching tree now, right? Brian Callahan going to Tennessee and all of that. How much does that affect you and your process weekly, whatever? I know you're going to lean on some other people,
Yeah.
but what is the dynamic change there?
Well, number one, I hate to lose Brian.
Yeah.
I mean, he was my best friend. We were together. I'd love to know how many hours he sat in my office and we talked through game plans and things like that.
Right.
So I'll miss that, but it's great. It's great for him to get a new opportunity. He's worked really hard for it. It's great for Dan Pitcher and Brad Craigthorpe to move up in their roles. Change can be a good thing, even though you sit there as the head coach, you think, I want the same staff for 10 years and no one changes roles, and I know what to expect, but change can be good for us, and so it can make it uncomfortable in a lot of different ways. We'll continue to work through it, but we've got really good people in place that we're able to be elevated, and I'm excited to see that challenge for all of us.
Yeah.
What percentage of your best secrets during those conversations with Brian Callahan did you keep to yourself?
Say that one more. What do you
What
mean?
percentage of your secret sauce? Like, you're not going to tell him everything you do. You got to hold some of it back.
I think
You
I
may be
told him
planning
everything. I think I
someday.
told him everything. It's I'm with my wife and I was with Brian Callahan. Really, those are probably the top two. And then there's Lou Anarumo and Darren Simmons. But being an offensive guy, I was probably with him the most. And so, you vent with him, you share ideas with him, and you lean a lot on him. And he's deserving this opportunity, and I'm proud of him, and I know he's going to do a great job.
You were in Tampa with me, right, for a little bit,
Very
and I want to be.
briefly.
You remember the motions,
God, I feel
blast
bad
a
for him,
bunch,
man.
right, and all that crap that we used to do there. But either way, another kind of just big picture thought. Are you like amazed with kind of where quarterbacks have gone, just even like the start of your NFL career, right? And I mean that just because they're kind of all the same mold. Right, as far as pocket passer, do that. There wasn't like these other dynamic athletes right now. It's a totally different position now. Are you kind of amazed by it? Do you have to evaluate the position differently?
That's a great question. You're right. I think I'm the right person to answer that because I came up playing for Bill Callahan. The only reason I got invited to Tampa was so I could take snaps in the rookie minicamp and call the plays because I ran that offense in college at Nebraska.
Right.
That's the only. Looking back, that's why, which is fine. And so you were under center, pro style.
Yeah.
Those were the key ingredients for
Right.
guys. Be able to talk the verbiage. And then when I got in the NFL in 2012 and started having to scout quarterbacks as a quarterback coach, I graded those guys higher than I graded this spread offense, shotgun, run around, because I didn't believe that's how you play in this league.
Yeah.
And then I was proven wrong time and time again.
Right.
To where over my time, the last 10 years, I've had to totally shift.
Yeah.
And you just got to look for the intangibles, the arm talent, the ability to learn and elevate your teammates.
Right.
And you have to look at it drastically different than I came into the league in 2012 and was kind of pigeonholed.
I
and
hear
looked at
you.
it that way. So
It is.
It's been interesting, and they come in all shapes and sizes, and there's a lot of different styles of players doing a great job.
Yeah.
Last year, right over there, we asked you about Joe Mixon. You said he'd be on the team last year, and he was.
Yep.
What about this year?
Yeah, I think same thing. We're in the same position. He's been a big part of what we've done. Went to the Pro Bowl this year and helped us through a really tough situation at the end of the year when we lost Joe Burrow. And so, again, I think guys that mean a lot to this organization. Joe means a lot to me. And so we'll just continue to progress through the offseason and see where everything ends up next year.
When you look at your rival, right? I feel like you're really one of the only team, if not the only team, the Kansas City Chiefs are scared of in football, right? Or at least you make them think. I'll say it. You don't have to say it. But what is it about them? Because I think they have a respect for you guys and some of the stuff you do. What is it, how you look at them and impresses you about the Chiefs' culture and Andy Reid?
It's never easy. There's no freebies when you're playing against that defense. You earn every single yard that you get, every first down, every point. You earn it. They've got key players at every level that they've done a great job of. And I think offensively, obviously, it starts with their top two guys and goes from there. But, every game we've played against them the last 5 times has been a battle. It's come down to the end of the game. It's you got to stay penalty free, turnover free, and make the most of your opportunities down the stretch. And I think each team that's won has done that. Down at the end of the game.
Do you notice like Joe B, number 9, when it's Mahomes and Josh Allen and he's about to play? Is there a different twinkle in his eye during the week?
I mean,
right? I know I used to get excited against other big time.
I think that's his secret sauce. Is he's so locked in every week he's playing.
It doesn't
And
matter.
So
you're
to
saying.
see him in the games, he was healthy this year,
Right.
and what he did for us, that's the guy we're used to seeing at this point. And so he always shows up on those stages, and I know he's chomping at the bit to get back out there.
He does seem to rise to a higher level in the postseason, though. Some guys, in the narratives out there, they can't win under those bright lights. It seems like the brighter the lights are, the more anxious he is to show what he can do.
Yeah, and anxious isn't the word I would use. I think it just prepared and ready
determined.
to go. Determined. Yeah, and I think that's the moments he's prepared for his entire life. And so he's finally on that stage. He's used to being on that stage. Went to state championship in high school, national championship in college, Super Bowl in the NFL. That's his expectation, is to be there and to be able to perform on that stage.
All right, so you're here, Combine. I know you got to go here in a minute, but, your team overall, any specific area, anything you did last year, whatever that you feel like, hey, I definitely want to get better in this area, this year in 2024.
I don't know that there's an area we can say that we were good enough, to be truthful with you.
Yeah,
okay. And I think when you go 9-8, which is basically 500 in this new modern 17-game schedule, we're going to call that the modern 7. I don't know what we're calling that, but you can't walk away feeling like anything was good enough.
Right.
And so it's good. It's created a new urgency within our coaching staff and our players that wasn't good enough, and everything we've been doing, we got to reevaluate and start to get a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He's Zac Taylor. Congratulations on 6 years. Here's the 6 more. 6 more beyond that, and what the hell? 6 more beyond that. Bengals head coach. We'll be back with more.
He'd have to
from the
deal with
Scouting
us for a
Combine.
long time.
Yeah. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.